We're in the lower level of the town hall at 617 Orange Center Road. I'll introduce the commission to you. I'm Charles Waskowitz, chairman. To my left,
Rick Mangione.
Michael Robichaud.
Walt Vesputa.
Drew Gunning.
Jim Ewan.
Leslie Giovanelli. Diana
I asked. We have 6 items on the agenda tonight. The first order of business is to consider the October 23rd, 2007 minutes. I had a chance to read those, and I did have one thought at the very end, but I see it's redundant anyway. The paragraph just above, motion to adjourn, the last sentence, it says additional discussion will continue on the Farm River application during the next public hearing. I thought that should be just reworded a little bit, and I'd prefer to have it say the public hearing will continue on the Farm River application at the November 13th, 2007 meeting. And here, I wrote it out for you. Okay. That's all I had.
I had a question
Jim?
on bullet item number 4. On the second page, it says, have septic system stated. I didn't know what that, I think it meant state.
Oh, yeah. What is that fourth
State.
bullet? State. As a K is missing out of there. Yeah, I saw that too and forgot about it.
I cut and paste went crazy.
Other additions or comments? And I forgot to say, we started the meeting at 7:32. If there are no other changes, I'll take a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as read.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve the minutes with the change. Would someone please second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor of the minutes as changed, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstain? Rich and Walter abstain. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is routine business correspondence. I don't know if there is any tonight. I didn't see any. No, there isn't. Great. Next item, new applications. For receipt, there are none, but for discussion tonight, there are 2 items. The first one is 407 Old Tavern Road. Do we have a presentation tonight?
Good evening. My name is Michael Dimichow. I'm a surveyor with the firm of Ogat, Dimichow and Kane. And I'm here tonight to present these 2 particular lots on Old Tavern Road. Basically, it's on the westerly side of Old Tavern Road, just south of Treat Lane, which is in this area here. What I did here for tonight was I put the 2 lots together so we can discuss both of them together at the same time, if that's all right.
Yes.
Back in 1987, I'm sure you have a record of this. This was approved through the Wetland Commission back then. And basically, it's the same configuration of the layout of the approval that was done back in 1987. I do have a copy of the original site plan. I don't know if you have it on your record here tonight, but I can give you this plan of the original site plan that was approved back in '87. I guess I can just hand it around, I guess. This is also a copy of the letter of the approval.
Michael, if I may interrupt, you're saying there's a site plan approved by wetlands or planning and
Wetlands.
zoning? By wetlands. Okay.
Also planning and zoning. Also
Okay, I'm not
is
familiar with that.
Okay, what we're here tonight for is David Gagel. He's going to be living on this particular parcel here, lot number 2, and Christine Knight, the daughter of Holly and Fred Knight, will be going on lot number 1. What we're proposing for David's lot first, which I'll go over first, is the first lot closest to Treat Lane, or parcel number 2. Associated house, proposed driveway, existing proposed septic area. Excuse me. And we do have approval from Fred Schumacher on the design of the septic area. What we're proposing for roof drains, 40-foot of side-by-side quick pour infiltration for groundwater recharge in this location here, and we also have 40 feet of section in this area here. Proposed footing drains will be exiting along this way to discharge into the field back here. I don't know if you're all familiar with this site too, but give you a little. This is all open field, hay field. They do hay this. The darker area is the actual tree line, and the wetland is a little bit further into the wetland area. With these, on lot number 2, basically it's an on-grade system, so it's very minimal grading. There'll be some grading just for landscaping more than anything. Talking about maybe a foot of fill, regular landscaping topsoil material in this area here. Go to lot number 1. Same thing, configuration of the house layout, proposed driveway. Footing drains be going into, not footing drains, rough drains be going into quick for gallery systems here. Footing drains will be exiting also in this area here. There is some filling, a little bit of filling on lot number 1 also, approximately about a foot in this area here. Basically what we're trying to do, if you're also familiar with this area, there are some nice maple trees in the front of these parcels. We are going to keep those in the way we situated these drives, so we'll be going between those nice trees, and we won't disturb that area. And basically, we're keeping the same layout as the original approval back in 1987. Very minimal grading on this particular site, altogether.
Michael, I have a couple questions on, I believe you're calling it lot number 2 for 407 Old Tavern Road. The proposed well, and then you have like almost a circumference there. Is that a 75-foot line there?
Yes.
So that's 75 feet there.
Yeah. When I moved it over, I might have took that out.
Yeah, okay. The southerly part of 407, that lot, the southerly lot, let me say it differently, the southerly part of 407's plan shows 3 pipes going along out, the yard drain, footing drains, and a roof drain. Is that what that is?
Over in this area here?
Exactly. Is that's
Right.
3 different pipes?
Basically, you got the roof drain, the footing drains are going to be going out here, and then the overflow from the roof drain gallery system will be going in.
So
there.
that's why that limit of disturbance goes way out there.
Right. And again, like I said, that's all open field. It's it's hay field. It's very minimal disturbance there whatsoever. There'll be no tree cutting or what have
Yeah.
you. in this
You also
site.
stated one other thing is that the design concept was approved by Fred Schumacher. He did, at least it appears to have signed mine on October 10th, 2007.
Yes.
But he has, it says, see notes 21 and 22. And I was just handed something else. This is the department head sign-off sheet. The town sanitarian, Fred Schumacher, I guess it says CB, catch basin is necessary in the driveway. Stormwater runoff from driveway cannot discharge onto or a minimum of 25 feet from leaching system. There is
do
a
have
a catch basin there, isn't there? Is that
Correct.
the one there? Yeah.
Right, right in this area here.
Yeah, so that's one. And above that, it looks like town engineer Ed Lieberman signed off on it, as well as the zoning enforcement officer, Paul Denise. Anyone else want to see this? Thank you, Scott.
I think he also mentioned too that he wants us to supervise the construction and what have you on this also, because
Yes.
we did talk to Fred today on that.
Yeah, good, good.
Construction supervision of the whole site when it's.
Any questions, commissioners, or concerns? Mike, sorry, Rick?
The yard drain. Is that actual catch basin style?
It's
Or,
gonna be, it's only gonna be, I think it's an 8-inch pipe.
oh, I
you know,
see it's an
just-
8-inch pipe.
It's just gonna be one of those ones you can buy at Home Depot type thing, you know. It's not
Are-
gonna be
You're
like,
gonna have a small sump?
yeah, just to be a small one.
Could you put a 90 on it?
It's up to, you know, Al, our engineer, to see if you know.
Or just anything from the driveway going into there, at least all the sand and all that's
Yeah.
not gonna go
Right, you
directly
wanna be able to get in there to clean it out, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I'm saying if the pipe is to the bottom of the catch basin, you know what I mean? The pipe's gonna get,
Right, you're gonna
So,
keep it,
it'll
you're gonna
clog.
keep it, you know, we'll probably do, you know, what, they're all different sized, you know, the PVC
Right.
ones, you know, you can keep it a foot above the bottom, so you do have some, you know, you can get in there and clean that.
right,
sand
and if
out.
you just pop 90 on it.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. That's no problem. Yeah, we just had a similar situation on a house on Ridge Street, that's what we did, and it made a night and day difference with that. Just putting that little deeper sump and doing that 90, like you said, does make a world of difference.
Is this okay? I had a question, I wasn't sure, about the percolation tests. The time and the amount of, it dropped from 4 inches to 1 1/4, for example, on perk test number 104. Help me understand that a little better.
I have to pull that out.
Well, here, would you like mine? Just take mine, I
Yeah.
don't need to have it. Oh, I'm sorry, God, poor Ron.
Where's this?
right.
Top right, but in the perk test 104, just if you'll review how the water dropped.
So it dropped 1 1/4 inches. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it basically, every 10 minutes, it dropped 1 1/4 inches.
That's very good.
Yeah, I was trying to get it.
It's a good, 1 inch in 10 minutes is, you know, 1 inch in 10.
Is that what you're looking for normally, 1 inch in 10, or is there some standard? Optimum, okay, great.
Basically, orange, if you can get a 20, you're doing really well.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Michael.
Just the
It
one-
says at the bottom, 1 inch and 8 minutes at the bottom of the table.
The actual rate
yes.
is right at the bottom.
There it is, and 1 inch in 13.3 on perk 105.
Right.
Thank you. Commissioners? Scott, please.
I was just, are you going to do this collectively or one at a time? It's two separate applications.
I would think you would need to do them separately, unless someone feels differently. It would be convenient to do them together, but they are two separate applications.
Just a matter of housekeeping.
Yeah, housekeeping, I think we should do them separately, separate motions. Thank you. Go right ahead, Rick.
Oh, I was just gonna make a motion to approve 407 Old Tavern Road with just the one condition with the deeper sump and 8-inch elbow.
Would someone like to second that motion, please? Okay, I'm sure Rick's going to read into the record the standard conditions of approval, which he'll enumerate, and then you'll get in a correspondence as to exactly what these numbers mean,
First, we'll see if it gets approved now.
if it does, yes.
Let's see, number 1, number 2, number 3. Let's see. Number 5. number 8, number 9, and number 10. I think that's it.
I don't know if the deed restriction was ever put on the land records. I didn't research that as to, back under the original approval in September of '87, no development of any kind shall take place in the wetlands. This must be recorded in the land records and a deed restriction, was what Mitchell Argold was chairman at the time.
So you're gonna need number 6 then?
6 then, if it's not there.
So I think we should probably include that in the event that it has not been done, because that was a condition of prior approval. And I feel it is justifiable today.
That's fine. Keep number 6 then.
Walter, you agree with those conditions since you second it? Yes, he does. Thank you. Any further discussion? This is for 407 Old Tavern Road. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Aye. Any against? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Now, number 411 Old Tavern Road.
Make a motion to approve 411 Old Tavern Road with the standard condition approvals of 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Someone like to second it? Walter?
I'll second that.
Second by Walter. Any discussion? I have one item. On 411 Old Tavern Road, there is a handwritten note. It says design concept approved.
Brian Slagowski.
Brian Slagowski. It says sieve analysis and percolation test of select field required.
Right, that's why they have to have engineering supervision
Yeah.
for the septic installation.
Okay, so that'll,
They have to bring it in.
okay, I saw that there, and since we didn't get to this one separately till I opened it.
Well, I think the note said they might have to raise it up a foot and you have to use
It did.
select fill or something,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, with the final grading, it's gonna be about a foot of fill in the back.
He's the
That-
assistant sanitarian.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's all in the plans.
Yep. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion for 411 Old Tavern Road, please signify by saying aye or raising your right hand. Aye, unanimous. Thank you, good luck, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I never got one. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
Have a nice holiday too, guys.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is old business. Does anyone have any old business they wanted to bring up? Because in about 9 minutes, we can continue with the public hearing of Farm River Estates.
I want to go grab a site plan for Farm River.
Okay, Scott's going to excuse himself for a moment to get some documentation, and then perhaps he can give us the enforcement officer's report when he returns.
Don't have one.
Don't have one, so we'll just
Going on break.
go on a break until 8 o'clock, about 8 minutes from now, and then we'll have a public hearing on continuation of the public hearing on Farm River Estates. Welcome, everybody. We are now going to reopen up the public hearing on Farm River Estates. Mr. Weiwei, would you like to have any presentation, or Mr. Codispoti? Please come forward. Give one back.
Maybe you can give it.
There you go. Thank you. I believe we have these attached to a document that was submitted, but
Yes,
these
I
just
just
happen to
gave
be
you
color.
something in color, might
Yes,
be a little
there
more
you go.
descriptive, and that's, Well,
Here, Michael, have mine. I have one in color. I have one right here.
okay.
Bless you. Yeah.
They're the same except the one's in color, that's all. So maybe it might be a little easier for you to read. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, tonight we are going to be brief. We're going to show you what revisions we have. That we hope will address your concerns. I'm assuming that you also have the report that was prepared by Drew Associates. Mr. Abrams is here, and if you have his report, is that in the file? Yes.
It came in my packet.
Okay. And in addition, I don't know if you have a letter from Ed Lieberman that states we have come to agreement on the
You're
issues.
talking about a memo dated November 8th, 2007,
Correct.
and then on the backside is a letter.
Yes, and in the
Yep.
memo, he simply says that the only additional need was that we make a note on the plan which we have agreed to, on the grading plan that shows how the floodway, or flood boundary was established. And so we believe that satisfies that issue. Let me take you to the revisions that we made. In your little packet, Lot 4 is the first one, and what we've tried to do is give you a burn-off and then show you the new positioning of the house and what we hope to accomplish. On Lot 4, which was a concern for many of you, you can see the wetlands line is shown in red. We have moved the house 16 feet away further from the wetlands, and that shows you in the background, you'll see the burn-off of the original position, and of course the dark is the newer position. We also propose to construct a stone wall that is shown here. A minimum for the stone wall will be 30 feet from the wetlands, and there will be no disturbance on this side of the stone wall. Now, the planting of Dr. Abrams will talk to you about the value of them. I'm just going to mention that the two things that were scheduled for planting were spice bush and summer sweet, and these would be done by hand. It shows them on the back of the stone wall. The stone wall will be a natural barrier that the homeowner will not be able to encroach upon. And the spice bush and summer sweet can be planted by hand. There's no equipment going in there. There's no grading that we hope to put in there. It'll be just all done by hand. The next thing is that we're going to leave a backyard. This backyard that you see here, up to the stone wall, which the householder will have an opportunity to use, really is from 25 feet to 40 feet of backyard, which is more than sufficient. And of course, the side yard will be a little shorter. And we, by having this natural barrier of a stone wall, we believe that will prevent or protect the wetlands and prevent individuals from encroaching beyond that. On Lot 5, we're doing a similar thing. As you notice, we have realigned the house on Lot 5. And that realignment, the average is about 10 feet further away from the wetlands, but by moving it, the closest point from the house to the wetlands is 53 feet. Here we have used a 40-foot buffer, and we're going to...
Excuse me. Can I just interrupt for a second?
Sure.
Back on Lot 4, just because it's hard to read the contours on the, is the stone wall going to be like going down to stone wall coming up, and then the trees planted behind? Or is it graded stone wall and then the trees planted behind it?
From the stone wall, it'll drop off. These are not trees, these are, the ones we're talking about are bushes, yeah. The stone wall is on the edge of the top of the rim, and then
Okay.
it drops down
Okay, that's what I'm wondering.
behind the stone wall. On Lot 5, you have a similar situation. This stone wall, we're going to set back 40 feet from the wetlands, and we'll have a similar situation where some plantings can be done behind the stone wall, but there need not be disturbance or grading of any kind from the stone wall to the wetlands, either during construction or after. And we've also, if you recall, on that lot 5, there was a lot of grading in the rear of the house. We've removed all of that grading. If you look at the little plan that was shown, we had grading around the house and a patio. That's all been removed because this particular house can simply be, it's not necessary. It could either be a walkout or the person can leave it the way they want in the back. But all the grading between the stone wall and the back. Now, the question came up, what about the rear yard? Well, right here, the stone wall is very close. It's only 15 feet away from the house. But there's a very large area right to the west. If you look to the west, you'll see you have, behind this patio, there's a patio right here shown, and that's about 40 feet from the wall. And then all this area in here can serve as as yard space for the individual without any disturbance or pressure to be on the wetlands. That can be used as the side yard, which is somewhat of a rear yard too now. On Lot 5, there's plenty of room because, as you can see, to the west, the wetland line is shown over here, which is about 100 and some feet away from the house.
If you're sitting on your patio on Lot 5,
This one?
right, and
Yeah.
looking at the wall, I will see 30 inches of stone?
Well, we haven't gone into detail. It'll be a stone wall, we say 30 inches high.
Well, no, the thing I'm asking, the grass isn't to the top of the wall.
No.
Right.
No. Right, no.
Right, okay.
The wall will be a barrier, whether they make it 30 or...
No, but I'm just saying, it's
Yeah.
not gonna be to the top of the wall, and then it drops 30 inches
No,
on the
no,
opposite
no,
side.
No,
Right.
we have stated that the wall should be 30 inches high, meaning from whatever grade they finally do. There may be a minutia of detail.
Well, I know it could be high if you're looking from the back, too. But the front could also be buried.
Okay, well, no, you make a fine point. We agree with that. And I think that what we need to do is just simply say, make sure that it's a barrier. 30 inches is usually sufficient for that. But again, there's a lot of room for a side yard here. Now, on Lot 8, if you'll see, we've readjusted the house again. However, we didn't put a stone wall on this one. We have, on Lot 8, for example, we have a 20-foot buffer. The house has been moved 22 feet further away from the wetlands, and the closest point to the wetlands now is 60 feet. 62 feet. It used to be 40. And this buffer that you see here is planted with a considerably more, Dr. Abrams will go through it a little bit with you, spice bush, summer sweet, blueberry, cranberry on this 20-foot buffer. And the way the house is now set up, you'll notice that the new grading lines are off the front. This house could be set up, if they want, a walkout is not a problem. But instead of a stone wall, there'll just be this barrier of bushes that will be planted. It would be up to you if you want us to put markers in the wetlands or if you would like to have markers set off the wetlands. Either of that can be done. This is a much larger lot. There's lots of room both to the north and south for a yard, and the plantings, we believe, will be of real benefit. The remainder, and we'll answer questions at one time if that's all right. The remainder of the lots are shown here. We haven't made any changes. Lot 1, for example, the house is 150 feet from the wetlands. Lot 2 is here. That house is 85 feet. The pool 90 feet from the wetlands. The wetlands line is right here. On Lot 3, which is down here, it's 100 feet from the house to the wetlands and 100 feet from the pool to the wetlands. Lot 6, 4 and 5 we've talked about. Lot 6 is set back 95 feet from the wetlands line over here. This is the wetlands area. And Lot 7 really has no wetlands on it, but it is 150 feet, or 135 feet, I'm sorry, from the wetlands line on Lot 8. The reason we've done nothing further is we don't know honestly how people will come in, but there's plenty of room on all of those lots. And if they come in and they wish to have a larger home or something, they'll have to come before you with a plan that will be acceptable to you. So we believe by limitations are putting the limits on 4, 5, and 8, that satisfies, we hope, most of your concerns. I would like to introduce Dr. Abrams now to talk more about how these things function, and then and go over his report, and unless you want to ask questions now.
I do have a question before you leave, at least on Lot 8. It's listed as a 20-foot buffered planting strip. What's the length of the approximate length? If it's 20 foot, I'm taking that as the width.
This is about 150 feet,
Thank you.
approximately.
I just wanted that
It might be
clear.
125 feet.
Is that it's not just 20 feet
Oh, no.
lengthwise.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Abrams.
Evening, folks. Dr. Ron Abrams of Drew Associates. I explained my credentials last visit, but I brought a copy of my CV, which you might want to add to your record.
Yeah, thank you.
In the spring of 2006, and then again in the summer and fall of that year, my staff and I made a number of visits to the entire property between Tyler City and Lambert's Road, looking at the ecology around the proposed subdivision and, of course, at the other lands that eventually became publicly acquired. And our approach began as a holistic approach with concerted effort to record whatever wildlife species we found as we went around getting familiar with the topography and the habitats. And, of course, what we found, and for those of you that know the property, it's sort of obvious, most of the work area of this project, of this subdivision, is in farm field. And on either side, it's bounded by wetland watercourses and watersheds, including to the east, the Indian River corridor, which is off the property but has an ecological significance to the property, and the wetlands and watercourses to the west of the proposed subdivision, which are not really shown here. What we're looking at here in this wetland is a highly artificial area of hydric soils, but there is a more natural watershed and wetland system that flows from the property to the north, just further west. So the proposed subdivision is a wedge between two sensitive watercourses, both of which now have become through public acquisition, have become permanent open space. And of course, that's not surprising. Those are the forested areas, and that's where we found the more exciting ecology. Many of the species that we saw or that we projected in our report, we saw along the margins of those watercourses and forested wetlands. In the farm fields, the ecology wasn't very exciting, and that's no surprise to anybody. But in the wetland that we're looking at, just off of lots 4, 5, and 6, is some tributary watercourses that drain down and join the Indian River off the subdivision property, but still within the farmlands. And so the real ecological value of the lands in which the subdivision are proposed is as part of the, shall we say, margin to the watercourses. There is the intermittent tributary that comes down through the property, across which Farm River Road must set the culvert. But this is an intermittent watercourse that I don't think we saw it really flow ever. We've seen it wet, we've seen it moist. We returned again this spring, late spring '07, to look at the area again. And as you heard from Bob Weway, it has a very small watershed. And as long as the subdivision, the new subdivision to the north of this property, and of course this subdivision, as long as they are both managed for their stormwater features according to proper practices, best management practices, I don't expect this watershed will change at all, the tributary that we're crossing. The buffers that have been provided to that particular segment, the segment that runs through the proposed subdivision and under Farm River Road, that the buffers to that are more than adequate, in my opinion, to prevent any change to the intermittent watercourse. And with the culvert, as we've already discussed, under the road, we expect that any wildlife that might move along that corridor is going to be satisfied to continue moving. For that reason, they're going to restore the natural substrate at the bottom of the culvert. It'll be an open box culvert without any artificial structure on the bottom. And the soils and rocks that are there now, any of them that get displaced will be stockpiled and replaced. So small organisms, probably mostly invertebrates, will continue to use that watercourse. In doing our study, we looked, of course, for sensitive, endangered, threatened species, and we didn't see any in the subdivision area. We all know that the Indian River Corridor is valuable, and there probably are some interesting species that spend considerable time in there. We didn't see any, but we wouldn't negate the possibility. As I return to my comments on stormwater management, that was my main concern, was that since we are tributary, less so on the west side, more so on the east side, to the waterways that actually flow in a seasonal cycle to the Indian River, protecting the water quality of those waterways was critical. And I was very interested to listen to the discussion last time and then to work with the fellows from Cotaspoti to make the revisions to Lot 5. And I remember questions being asked about the extent of grading and impact in the margin of the wetland. My comment to the team was, if you keep your work above the bank, in this area of the farm field, the field comes to the edge of the woodland and then drops off. And down below is where the wetland habitat begins, some 50 or so feet in from the farm field. And now the revisions they've made for this lot succeed in pulling back the activity that would have dropped down over the bank. So the stone wall is going to redefine or reinforce the division between the existing farm field and its soils, which are disturbed, and the woodland, which is a little disturbed, but really in pretty good shape. And so that revision was the most important to me. In at Lot 4, the place where this wetland extends up into the field is actually, by Connecticut regulations, it's got hydric soils, so it qualifies for regulation, but it does not have hydric vegetation. It's not functioning as a wetland. Nevertheless, they're going to protect it. And in fact, on this lot in particular, the plantings are going to do something that we hadn't thought about before the revisions in the last 2 weeks, and that's to enhance the edge of this woodland, which is pretty beat up. So a stone wall with native wetland shrubs as a backing is going to create an edge that right now, if you go to the spot, the farm field sort of just goes right into the woods. There's a bit of a grade, but there's really not much distinction. With the proposed buffer, that's going to sever the human activity from the wetland activity and effectively protect this area. And, well, Mother Nature will help. I wouldn't be surprised that in that case, this area, which was a long-standing farm road crossing, it actually goes right through the wetland and comes up through the woods, and there's an opening in the farm field bank on this side, and it's evident that there's been a lot of farm traffic through here, and now with that kind of traffic ceased and the buffer provided, this may grow back as nice wetland. It's got the hydric soils and the seeds in the environment, so it wouldn't surprise me. For Lot 8, this is a very healthy buffer, and in my opinion, any drainage in the soils here was heading southwards anyway. So that's going to have a long run before it reaches anything sensitive, and any drainage that enters the soils and tries to reach the roadbed is going to be picked up by the proper grading and drainage provided for the roadbed. So I see this as being, well, I wouldn't call it overkill, it'll be a very nice buffer, but I certainly don't see any potential impact from this home into the intermittent watercourse right behind it. So to summarize my position, I believe that the linear distance setbacks that have been provided now with these revisions are certainly adequate to protect the resources. The added buffer features are going to enhance that. And, for the last, 6, 8 years, I've been doing a lot of work in Connecticut with herpetofauna. And we're finding that these stone walls are really effective. They do 3 things. They block stormwater runoff. They act as barriers, permanent barriers. And they actually help collect the stormwater and distribute it. It's almost an unintentional, shall we call it a farm drain or a level spreader. They also provide habitat. We have found an enormous amount of life in the stone walls. Now, often we're looking at old, historic stone walls. But imagine a stone wall with a vertical section cut through it. It provides an amazing amount of 3-dimensional habitat for invertebrates and herpetofauna. And if you back it with native vegetation as they're proposing, you really created them a haven where they can take their forays out into the field, which some animals do, but less and less so as the farm fields are converted to human activity. But they act as a very effective barrier for wildlife coming from the woodland toward the field. If they're looking for some resource and they need a little extra space, a snake or a frog, they'll stop in this area and live there. I like to think of the footprint of one of these types of buffers as being triple habitat because of the 3-dimensional nature. There's new habitat down below ground, and there's the new habitat above ground, and then there's the effect of the marginal buffer or the marginal barrier at the edge of the woodland. So I was pleased to see that they were able to fit these features in, and to me, they really do answer the issues that were raised when I listened to the discussion last time. So that's a run over my report and my view of what's happened in the last 2 weeks, and I'd be pleased to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Abrams. I had a question on lot number 5. As you approach that stone wall in either direction, if you come walking to it, you're going to walk up to a wall we're going to, may vary a little bit as it was already said, but essentially you walk up to it this way, it's 30 inches high. If you approach from the other side, it's 30 inches high.
There's a drop off here. It'll actually be taller.
Or taller from
Yeah,
that
for an
perspective.
animal standing down here, they're going to look up at the bank that's there now, which is maybe 4 or 5 feet up and fairly vertical. And then they're going to see the stone bank on top of it. They're not even going to see the house.
Yeah, my concern was, and the point that I wanted to make is that there's no fill going in behind any of these walls.
Not as far as I can tell. There's no need
no
because
fill.
these are marking the edges of the farm field,
Right.
so we're keeping all our activity in already disturbed soils.
All right, along those same lines, the differences I saw between lot number 8 and lot number 5 was, it appears that you have 150 linear feet on lot number 8, maybe something less on lot number 5 of stone wall, 100 feet perhaps, something like that. But the number of plantings on lot 8 versus the number of plantings on lot 5, was there a reason for the significant difference there?
Well, I think Joe made the point. These sketches are the first shot to see if the town is satisfied with this approach. Jeff Gordon, their landscape architect, and I have done significant amount of work like this together where we've actually managed field contracts. And we understand that what we put on the paper the first time around isn't the final product. We're going to create, in each of these areas, a dense shrub habitat. The selection of the species, I like his selection of species. The sizes, well, when it's actually, my company does contract plantings, so we know, on the ground, hands-on what happens. When it's time for construction, you're not sure what you're going to find available from the nurseries. And you go for the best quality material, and if some of the individual plants are smaller than you might have expected, so then you put in a few more plants than you might have expected. The point being, we have a sense for what kind of density to achieve, and obviously, if you need more input on that, on this next cycle of comments, we can take that further.
Okay, you've answered it. I just wondered if there was some distinct difference between the two of why one seemed to be more robust than the other, but at the first shot, I understand. Let me open it up to other commissioners. Questions, please. Diana?
On lot number 5, the stone wall that's to the kind of southwest of the house, what's between the existing stone wall over this way?
Yeah, it's not even on his map.
It's
I can hardly
southwest.
see it.
Oh, you mean down in this
No,
area?
Yeah.
it's farther over, on the tree line on that side, on over this way. It's probably very light, you can hardly see it. It's just next to the septic system, right along the edge of the reserve.
Oh, I see this.
Okay, what is on the wetland side of that stone wall versus the upland side?
Well, on the upland side, there are some trees. You know, the farm field edge isn't mowed right to the bank, but on the back side is where the bank starts to drop down again. So there'd be natural vegetation. A lot of the vegetation along the farm field edge is there's briar and goldenrod and some shrubs, and the tree canopy shades that area pretty well, so it hasn't developed an especially dense thicket. Just trying to remember the spot in particular.
But pretty much that's a treed area similar to what you're protecting behind the houses. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, let me just look here.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Avery and Diana, if you note on this map behind it, the darker shaded area was the tree area that Mr. Codispoti talked about. So that area's, if that's correct, that depicts what you're asking.
Okay, so when Mr. Codispoti was identifying the area of the lawn, he was kind of including that in that. And I would be concerned about that. And I think that stone wall is a really good natural, existing barrier that maybe the other stone wall could be tied into rather than, so I think that's something that you need to look at. The other question I had is lot 4. You're talking about that area of the wetland that's been highly impacted.
This area, yes.
Okay, you said there was some sort of a road that went through
That was a
there?
farm road bed, and if you see, you don't
Okay.
see the tire tracks anymore. I think it's been a while since machines, maybe a year or two, and it's grown in a little bit. But you can actually see a bit of a depression where the road bed went down, crossed the wetland, and came back up into this other farm field. And the tree and shrub density right in this area is low because at some point some stuff was taken out by the farmers.
Okay. But it sounds like that the addition of vegetation is going to enhance that. So another consideration might be to plant around that to enhance that wetland further
Do plantings in here?
around the edge of that to help.
It's feasible.
Okay, that's all for now.
Other questions, commissioners?
I have a question. Where are the culverts going under there, making the, connecting it to watershed areas there? Road salts, just from the road, just out of curiosity. I mean, how wide is that? I mean, we know what's going to happen. I mean, I understand just because of the plowing, this is going to be a public road. We're not sanding, we're salting now. It's going to go up the hill, come down the hill. How do you see that as?
I personally, after 21 years of this work, have not seen evidence of road salts in a low-density development creating a serious impact. We're familiar, and the literature is full of studies of road salts next to interstate highways and major cloverleafs, et cetera, where, in fact, they don't even do as much damage as we feared to begin with. Down on Long Island, the largest populations of the endangered species, tiger salamander, are living in the Long Island Expressway cloverleafs. So it's a concern in a low-density area like this. It's not, to me, not that big a concern. For the most part, the salts break down in the water as they're transported. So if you get a real river running, then you're going to transport them further into your wetland. But if it's just spread out over native soils, it breaks down pretty well.
I had one other question. I don't know if you have it handy there. Page 13 of your study. It's near the last remarks where you talk about the United States Environmental Protection Agency study. On page 13, actually, the very last sentence, I'll read it. It says, therefore, even setbacks of 40 feet are sufficient to protect a resource if stormwater flows are recharged to native soils in which robust riparian plantings are provided. Do we have less than 40 feet on many of these lots?
No, I think we achieve 40 feet most everywhere. Okay.
Mr. Codispoti, if you're going to speak, please come up.
On lot 4, the minimum is 30 feet. All the other lots are far more than that. We set that stone wall 30 feet away, and so, but that's the only one.
Thank you. Diana?
Do you have the title of the study with you?
Didn't put it in the reference.
Was it this one?
There is a bibliography.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Just for the commission, I think that we really ought to take a look at the statements that were taken really out of context in the first part of this paragraph, because if you're just reading this and you haven't read the study really differentiates between subsurface buffers and surface buffers. So what it's saying in this last section that you were just reading is important that the water gets into the ground. So if it's on the surface, it's not going to be as efficient. So from reading this, if you just briefly read this, you're not going to get that. And it really does say that, let me just read a little bit of it. Subsurface removal of nitrogen was much more efficient than surface removal. I'm not going to read all the examples. Furthermore, subsurface removal of nitrogen did not appear to be related to buffer width, which is what this is referring to. Whereas a small but significant proportion of the variance in surface removal of nitrogen was explained by buffer width. That is, wider buffers remove more nitrogen than surface runoff, while some narrow buffers, 1 to 15 meters, removed significant portions of nitrogen. 3 studies found that narrow buffers actually contributed nitrogen to riparian zones. In other words, they had a negative effectiveness. Such cases are likely to be short-term events due to nitrification or high rainfall events that lead to rapid inputs of particular nitrogen. And then they have a statement here which, if you look at the chart, is based on a grassed buffer. Based on our nonlinear regression model, 50, 75, 90% nitrogen removal efficiencies in surface flow would occur in buffers approximately 34, 118, 247 meters wide, respectively. Now that is talking about grass buffers, not wooded buffers, which I believe it said were more efficient. But I just wanted to point out that it's not as simple as what this says here. There's a lot to consider with a buffer width.
Mr. Abraham, would you like to comment?
Well, she's absolutely right, and that's why I was so pleased with the stone buffer feature. That will force the water into the soils.
And I think would follow up as well as additional plantings, because it was on lot number 5 that it, in essence, is like you said, it's only your first go at it, but there's only 23 plants going in over, I'm going to guess, over 100 feet, and that's not very much. It's not a lot of root mass there.
Depending on the species and the size of each individual, but we can achieve the density you need. That's not an issue.
I'm not. Diane, do you have something else?
Yeah, I think it would be good to put some trees in there too, because you were talking about how the shade from the trees in the other areas help too. A lot of the invasive species really need a lot of sunlight, so there's no reason that I can see why you wouldn't want to put trees in there.
Well, this might take a return visit to the field, but my memory of this spot.
No, I'm talking about the other one that.
This one?
That one up there.
This one here?
Yeah, that Charles was just talking about, because that's field right there.
Adding trees to that would be logical and should be no problem.
What were you going to say about lot 5? Is the contour is a problem?
Well,
the trees are up.
sort of. There's already good canopy there, though, so I don't know how much new canopy we could create.
I wasn't sure where you were going, but now I
Yeah, that's
understand.
not what I was talking about. I like the stone walls, and I think it is going to serve the purpose that we were looking for. I'm just concerned about the other area where it's not on lot 5. And also, trying to improve that buffer, in the meadow area, the field area.
Others? Jim, please.
In your report on page 14, it says, the wildlife now using the site is adapted to living human activity, including mowing and applications of agricultural chemicals. Did you find evidence of agricultural chemicals?
No, it's just the presumption that over the many years of farming, at some point, and I can't say I don't know the farmer or the specific history, but I just made the presumption that the wildlife in the area have been at some point in time exposed to standard agricultural practices.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear to the commission that somewhat familiar with the area, that those agricultural chemicals had not been used for at least 50 years. Fertilizer review, probably 1974 at the latest. It's been in pasture, and mowing definitely happened, but there was no application of chemical.
Thank you, Jim. That was an important note then, because typically, as the presumption would be, if there has been agriculture on the property where they're primarily for crops, and then heavy applications of all kinds of phosphorus, nitrogen, and many other things. Other commissioners, comments, thoughts?
I just would like to follow up on Lot 5 again, which has been a stickler with me from the first time I saw this, but I think there is definite merit to wrapping stone walls, the stone wall around the back to meet the one that's on the side, only because there's a great spot there, if anyone's familiar with that site, where you could just have a ball just filling in that wetland till you die. There's so much area to go, so it would really be good if we could put up a barrier all the way across there.
That seems to agree with what Diana was saying, and I presume that as each one of these lots comes back into us for final approval, we will establish that potentially as a condition for approval. Diana?
Something like that I would like to see right up front in the subdivision approval.
But very good, fine with
Yes.
whoever may want to consider this. Thank you both. Other thoughts? Mr. Abrams, thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Did you have something
I have
more?
I have.
For
yeah,
Mr.
but not-
Codescoti?
Not for Mr. Abrams.
No, okay,
but
thank you, Mr. Abrams.
I'm not sure whether it's for
Ron?
Mr. Codespotti or for the drainage guru over there.
Okay.
It's a hard question, Mr. Wee.
If it's a hard
Yeah,
question, we're going to pull Mr. Weeway up.
We're going to pull Mr. Weeway in from hiding in the back of the room over there.
Scott, would you like to ask the question? Robert, please come up. You want any of this? Feel free to drag it out. Which map are you on, Scott?
I'm not on anything that you have in front of you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because Codespotti Associates did a really decent job on phase one of the entire project with showing some of the farm roads that go through. But my concern at this point is lots 1 and 2, where the wetland that is no disturbance is to take place. But on your original future roads and alternatives resubmission for lots 4 and 7, that kind of came afterwards because those two weren't approved. You show the farm pond that's out there behind lot 4 and lot 5, but there is a pipe that exits that pond that's not shown anywhere on any of the plans that you have, that I could find anywhere. It's about a 12-inch pipe. And that heads through and goes into the drainage ditch that is on lots 1 and 2. And what's going to happen there is that is town-owned land. We are actually now going to be draining water from Lambert Road onto lots 1 and 2. And I for some reason, that seems like something that's going to be an issue way down the road with the owners of that property with, hey, how come we have to take their water? And it's something I think is really, I don't know if anybody ever picked up on that.
So if you just give us orientation, Robert, Lambert Road is on the far left-hand side of that map, and on an old proposal, previous proposal some months ago,
This stone wall here, where is it? Behind
Yeah, this doesn't show up too well on this drawing.
this stone wall here is now, this is a stone
Mhm.
wall that's right here.
Mhm.
So these wetlands are actually, they're part of the drainage, existing drainage ditch that's there now that comes down through here.
So we're actually gonna be taking Lambert Road and putting it onto these lots.
Yeah, if you'll point out, that Lambert Road is at the bottom of the non-colored map that you, no, the one you just held up. Yeah, Lambert Road is at the bottom
There's Lambert Road.
down here, that's right, and it flows up the water.
Water goes this way.
That's correct. See where he is now, everyone?
And it goes this way. They show the drainage ditch that's existing there now, but these two lots are going to be getting
Which are the two lots in the top left of the green map.
these two.
Yes.
So
Robert, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think Scott's done a good analysis of how the drainage goes. I mean, I wouldn't make any argument. I would probably venture to say that Lot 1 is not going to receive any significant or substantial amounts of flow from Lambert Road. You know, with regards to what's coming off through that area, if anything gets into this wetland system, it's basically intercepted by this particular wetland system and the farm ditch that goes through it.
Well, my thought process being that that rear boundary line for lots 1 and 2 should be shifted to the east, so that that's part of the town parcel, so that you're not into either an easement situation, or if it's left alone, as you have stated in previous hearings, that nothing's going to be done back there anyway, so it's all kind of moot, any of the discussion that took place prior. But in this case, I think it's become very germane to what's going on here, and a few feet chopped off of at least Lot 2 in particular, but probably both of those, because of the way that drainage pattern is up there. Otherwise, I think we're setting ourselves up for some long-term issues with stormwater management coming from town property onto private property. And now's the time to address it before we go any further.
It's certainly going to flow, presumably on the lower left-hand corner, that lot number 2.
Oh,
You can see that, I was just looking at the contours, it's going to come in.
You've got this swale area
Yep.
here, where it becomes a more pronounced water feature is midway through the open space area here. But yes, I mean, this, you could clearly see by the delineation of the contour line that this is a swale. The water basically flows in this direction.
Yep.
Coming down through the property. So this swale system is going to receive flow from both the properties of Lot 1 and 2, as well as what Scott had pointed out, the remainder of the other wetland area, the pond system, and the upslope area. However, with the exception of Lot 1, there's really not much from that Lambert Road or the off-site area that is going to get into this system. Most of this water is fed by Lot 1 itself and the adjacent area off from Whitney Acres, which comes into that particular area.
Maybe a little here, I don't know.
Again, I mean, you could probably go out and make the same argument that you know, some of these other wetland systems are receiving flow from off-site areas and potentially receiving flows from town roadway systems also. Again, I think what I would do is get back to the point that this is a wetland area, it's a regulated area. The property owners really, you know, if you're given the level of development up and through here, they really should have no need to come back here and do any type of construction, like within the wetland area proper.
Diana or Scott, on your expertise then, as far as one property owner, this case the town, having water flowing across their drainage across another property owner, what kind of issues have you come across before? Diana?
Lots of complaints.
Complaints.
Yes. Scott will hear them. I do have a question about Lot 2. Now that Scott has brought this up, I'm trying to look at the contours here. We're missing some numbers. I mean, they're hard to find. The gallery, the primary on Lot 2, looks like, if I'm looking at this correctly, it's at a lower elevation than some of the wetland on Lot 1. Is that correct? If I'm just having trouble finding the numbers here.
Yeah, I would say it looks like the primary galleries are running that 160 contour, give or take.
Okay, and the wetland on the adjacent property is going up to 162.
Yeah, there's a low point in the middle of 161, and then the 162
Okay.
contour kind of goes through. and
I would be a
around.
little concerned if additional water is coming on there, that it would spread from the top wetland to the bottom one, kind of along the contours and up into the septic area, which is not good from a wetland standpoint. And the other question I have is, why would this septic system not be put up where the reserve is?
Well, just to get back to your other question, there were a number of test holes that were done up in that area. There were standpipes that were monitored through the spring season by your town sanitarian. Groundwater was not an issue in those particular locations with respect to the design of the leaching systems. I think that to bear in mind that, yes, if you look at the contour lines, that, yeah, you've got a 162 and the 160, but this 162 is running parallel. Water from this area is not going to be able to get over that leaching system. Again, the primary flow direction is into this wetland system, and then the overflow, if you remember from several meetings ago, there was some discussion from, I believe, one of the memorandums from Fred Schumacher with regards to buried piping out there or some type of structure that may have drained this wetland system and provided that cross connection through here. With or without that pipe, the predominant flow that once this wetland system fills up, or if it reached its overtopping, would generally be over the farm road in that area, flowing down to that next wetland system. It's not, the flow direction is not going to take it over the leaching system. And I think the test holes that we've done up in that area would certainly bear that out.
Well, I'd comment on that. The area to the west of Lot 1, there's a drainage that comes down from Olson property, or the former DeFeo property, that goes underneath the farm road. That feeds into a pond, which then feeds into what would be the southwest corner of Lot 2.
Right, because this wetland system, even though we're only showing it coming up to the property line, this wetland system does continue up into
Right.
up into the Whitney.
But
Acres.
if the drainage system is affected in the pond that feeds into the southwest corner of Lot 2, there's an actual drain that goes from underneath there's a little farm road that crosses the pond. There's a 14-inch pipe that feeds the overflow of that pond into the drainage ditch.
All right,
And if that drainage
we're
ditch,
talking about this pond.
yes,
All right.
and that hits that Lot 2 corner falls within the open space, the town open space. And so the drainage ditch that's there, if that is impacted in any way, then Lot 1 could be impacted if there's a heavy rain. I've seen water about where the boundary line is of Lot 1, standing on a heavy rain.
Which is up and through this general area here.
Right.
Yeah, because it looks like, based upon the contour elevations, this portion of the drainage ditch is roughly 4 feet below this side of the farm road coming up through here, because we're looking at a contour elevation of about 156, and the edge or the perimeter up here is running approximately 160. So there's a 4-foot change in difference in the contours, and then with the actual configuration of the drainage ditch would be set down a little bit lower than that. But again, because of the flatness within this area, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that during some major storm events that there could be some backup like within that area. But that backup would certainly be short-lived, because you do have the contouring and the pitch to get from point A to point B, which is down at as it exits the site out to the south area.
All right, Robert, I have two things that I want to make sure that I understand. Diana, are you happy with your answer, with Robert's answer regarding lots 2 and the location of the septics or the reserve as you suggested?
I think it's kind of hard to tell because we don't really know how much additional water is going in there and what that's going to do in a storm. Unless these contours are wrong, I just think it's going to be, something's going to happen in the future where it's going to get a higher groundwater table or something like that.
Well,
I'm concerned about
when
that.
you say in the future, and maybe I'm missing something, the sanitarian's done, I mean, we've done numbers of testing out there. There's been groundwater monitoring performed in accordance with the health code. There are absolutely no issues with regards to the test holes in that particular area with the septic. Your town sanitarian has signed off on the feasibility of these leaching systems. So in my opinion, and in my expertise with my familiarity with the site, I don't foresee any issues with the septic system on Lot 2.
So you're saying the additional stormwater drainage that's going in here is not going to affect it?
Well, when you talk about the additional stormwater drainage, what are we referring to? Because there's nothing from the roadway system that's getting into the back of Lot 2. What's left is the area that's going to be sheeting off from the developed areas of lots 1 and 2. And if you take a look, we've got some groundwater recharge with the roof drain areas. The overflows from those are proposed to be connected into the stormwater system.
Okay, maybe then I didn't understand what Scott was saying about additional drainage. I thought you said there was road drainage that was going to come into this area.
Well, I think what Scott's referring to is that's existing roadway drainage coming in off of Lambert Road. The drainage patterns that presently exist out there today.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the second point I wanted to come back to and not lose it in the discussion that was taking place, was your concerns where the septic is. And then secondly, getting back to your question, or perhaps a proposal to determine whether a slither of that land could be negotiated with your client, or Mr. Codispoti with your client, the owner of the property, to determine whether we could avoid an issue in the future by having a transfer of property. I don't know if that's possible or not, but that's where it seemed like it was going.
The other suggestion that I would make is perhaps just incorporating a drainage easement over it. And,
Well, I'll tell you, that's the thing that bothers me again is the easement, and none of this really probably would have come to light if it hadn't been for the fact that somebody had gone out there recently with some type of tractor with a mower, and they've delineated where their quote-unquote property is and where the town property is. And, sure enough, somebody went right through that wetland drainage ditch, and the water is now at a point where it can be impeded, which is the same thing I feel is going to happen if a private owner has it, that it's going to get impeded. It's going to start to back up onto one because it can't flow the way it wants to, and then they're going to say, well, that's all town water coming down. Somebody drove right through it with a tractor. It's going to happen, and if the town doesn't have control over its own water through somebody else's property, in addition, that same ditch that comes down and hugs right alongside of St. John's and coming down into your detent pond, which I still feel you've got a stake.
Along Lot 3.
You've got a stake, I believe it's right here, in the middle of the drainage ditch.
That defines where the town line ends and where Farm River Estates begins, right smack dab in the middle of a drainage way. I mean, I don't understand the logic of that. It's ludicrous. And again, if they hadn't gone through and mowed everything, it probably wouldn't have been anywhere near as much of a concern, but it's been done, and now I can clearly see what's going to happen from this point forward. It's going to be a real headache. And someone did make a comment, it may have been Dr. Abrams at the last meeting, that, or it may have been you, it's irrelevant, but somebody made the comment, well, that drainage ditch won't be subjected to the sedimentation loading that it used to have because it's no longer farm field. Well, this thing's only been a hay lot for 30 or 40 years now and nothing else but, and already it's blocked and clogged up because somebody mowed it improperly and didn't know what the heck they're doing. So I'm sure Joe, homeowner up there, if he decides to have his landscaper come out and say, here, clear that backyard for me, I don't like all that hay over there, I already see what has happened because it's happened. It's out there, it exists presently. You go out there.
Mr. Codispoti, would you like to
Let me comment.
have your thoughts, please?
I appreciate, trying to future problems. We have no problem. I don't think I can talk to Mr. Riccitelli, and this is the drainage area coming through here. If this line has to move over so that the ditch is on fire, I don't think that's a problem at all. I hate to see us get into this, though, because in all honesty, this is a wetland, and it should have water. Who's going to... I don't care who complains. I can't stop people from complaining, but the wetlands ought to have water in them. And second, well, all I'm saying is, how much do we cut off here? I really don't know. If that's a real concern, we're glad to do it if it's something that's beneficial. It really is. I'm certain that we can move this over so that this ditch is on town property. That's no problem. Mr. Riccitelli would be happy to do that. So this line could come over here, the ditch could be on the town. That's your concern there, right? Yeah, and I think that's a legitimate one. There's no,
It appears, I was just looking real quickly, whether or not lot number 2 had enough
I think it's got plenty.
square feet to be
I just-
cut off.
Yeah, I
It's
just
almost
don't.
2 acres.
Right, I just think that if the man really comes down here and starts running equipment in there, you ought to take him and put him in jail. It's a wetland,
Well, the
and
problem
there
is
ought to
it's-
be
it's-
water in it. Now,
It's
how
not
much?
seen from anywhere, you see, and quite frankly,
Can't
if-
monitor
even
it.
if the, even if the property line follows the eastern half of the drainage ditch, I'm okay with that too.
Oh, no, we'll take care of that, Scott.
No, I'm
I've
talking
thought
about on
up
lot
here,
2.
yeah.
I'm talking about lot 2.
Where's the drainage ditch here? I don't really see it. Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know, that would be something that, I don't think it's necessary, but because I believe we're gonna put wetland markers all along here.
It's-
And we tell people, stay away. And if that's the case, they ought to. I think that we just have to have some
Well, the
responsibility. If all of the wetlands have to be taken off this property, that, we don't do that elsewhere. And why would we do it here? If we're going to do that on every property, that there are no wetlands because water's going to get, I think it's a bad precedent. However, I have no problem, I think, with Mr. Riccitelli moving this over. And as far as what happens on Lot 2, the house is over 100 feet away from the wetlands. We have a wooded area here that we'd like to see preserved. This ought to be wet, and if water comes in there, I don't know who complains about it.
It's going to be town road water going onto
always
private property.
But it always has.
Understood that and understand that, but, it's really a very, I'm not saying to dry the wetland up.
No, of course not.
All I'm saying is that because it's already happened and we don't even have approvals for this thing yet, that somebody's already gone through and made a mess out of things, real quick like.
Yeah, I don't have any, that person.
And that's going to, and like you just said, you're going to put markers up, you're going to do whatever you want, but either the owner did it himself or the owner allowed it to happen, and that is something that is going to continue to happen because it's very difficult to monitor.
Well,
The
let me
shortest distance to the neighbor's house is through the front door for an enforcement officer.
No,
I can't go to the back door without
No.
permission.
All I'm saying is this, we are changing nothing. Anybody who buys this lot, we're not changing any of the patterns. This has always drained this way. It's always drained on private property. Is it the town's responsibility to do something about it? Well, that would be up to them. But the point is, we are leaving this all the way it always has been. And if that's the case, the
No,
buyer...
Mr. Codispoti, that's Scott's point. You're not leaving it the way you are. Somebody's already drove, whatever, heavy equipment, tractor, through it, and it's altered it. And his point is just trying to make that, how can he enforce it, keeping it as, if you will, pristine as it was?
Would it change if the property line changed? Would that make any difference?
Absolutely.
Would people not still run their equipment over?
Well, no, because
Yeah.
now we have control over it.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
We have control over it then.
Well, let me ask, I don't know what to tell you. How big is that lot?
1.9.
Oh, and you need 1.5, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks like a pretty good sizable chunk.
That is a possibility. I'm not sure, Scott has made his point, you've attempted
Yeah,
to
well,
answer it.
anything's negotiable.
Yeah.
I really believe his point here is very well taken, because this is a farm ditch, or has been for years, and why put the line right in the middle of it? I agree.
Yeah.
That was something that was simply set without consideration of that line, but I have no problem, and I can talk to Gary about moving this line closer this way so that ditch is on town property. In here, how small are you going to make the lot? I really don't know the answer to that.
still have the benefit of a lot of open space and a big yard without the taxes or the maintenance of it. I mean, that's what it boils down to. You're still going to have exactly the same view, sans the guy in the tractor that goes through the ditch.
No, I understand that. You know what, the problem I have, to be very honest, when I talk to the owner and say, listen, we're going to, we're gonna move your lot from 1.6 to 1.5 or whatever it is, or 1 point, what is it?
1.9 to begin with.
Yeah, to 1.5. They always say, oh, that diminishes the value of my lot. But I'm just telling you what we face. I don't have a problem with it. If I lived here, I'd pretty much rather have the town owned.
All right, let me jump in and ask some of the other commissioners on that point or other points for anybody who's presented tonight.
Can I ask one question?
Well, Mr. Codispoti, please.
If indeed this is the line, however, we don't have enough room, see, I'm concerned with, we can't get you below 1.5.
Right.
We have, I don't know that there's enough room there. I don't really know that.
That's not the line. That's not the line to talk about. That,
Where is the ditch? Here? Here? See,
this is where the drain comes through from the pond.
Right.
There's a ditch that goes like this. So it's just in this area right here.
no problem.
We're talking about moving that boundary line to the other, basically where the farm road is.
Absolutely, no problem.
It's not that big cut.
It's not that diamond shape
So we're
then.
not talking about, from,
No.
here, it's not like this.
No,
Okay.
no, no, no.
Now, that's a mood issue.
I would recommend that.
Get your microphone, Jim, please.
Not a problem.
I would recommend, number 3, recommend that if anybody would like to see the area that we're talking about, that we could actually go there so that everybody, it's clear what we're talking about, including Mr. Riccitelli.
Well, can I just mention this?
Please.
If indeed I can keep this lot within the let's give it 1.6 acres, I don't think there'll be a problem as a condition of approval to adjust this line to, if at all possible, include that. That would not be a problem. Because what he's explaining is it's coming out of this pond and going this way. And so if you, even move the line over here or here, that would be easy. That would be done. And as a condition too, that this is moved out of the ditch so that the ditch is entirely on the town. We would rather have that anyway. I don't want the responsibility to maintain that. That's fine. That's not a
good.
problem.
Mr.
Thank you.
Codispoti, I think there's some debate, I guess, exactly. I mean, we've got what Jim's saying, and I think, is there a way to figure out exactly how big of a piece that would come out of that by the next meeting or something, just to sort of...
Well, we'd hoped that we could, close the meeting tonight. I do believe that we know we can't make it less than 1.5 acres. We can't do that because then we'd be in problem with zoning. So as far as adjusting this to include the ditch that's here into open space, we have no problem with that, providing that it doesn't...
Well, no, I don't think it's a question of adjust, I think it's just, we're trying to see something on there that we just can't see. And what I'm saying is there a way to find out exactly what that piece looks like on that lane? And I know you understand that, but conceptually, oops, wait a minute, Scott's pulling out the map here.
Just orient it, I'll just flip it 90 to the left with this one.
Let's see.
This is the farm pond that we're making reference to. There's a pipe outlet that comes through in this general area here. And then there's a ditch that hooks up with this ditch.
Lot 1 on your plan.
Okay, we can do that. Let me get a scale.
Over here, the house. You showing that stone wall?
Yeah, so it's pretty
We
close.
do have
There's a stone wall down here.
Okay, we got something. We got a stone wall.
There's our stone wall coming up.
It's a different scale.
Right, but here's your intersection right now.
Gentlemen, may I suggest that you take this to a workplace and come up with your solution? It's not beneficial to all of us to get the detail that I think is necessary. Diana?
I think this should be worked out and actually put on a plan before the
Yeah,
next meeting.
that's my point. I think you're gonna have to take it to a workplace and come back with it.
I would like to ask also, I think this is very good what you've done with these lots. I'd like you to take a look at the other lots and see if you can do some similar things on those. Because I think this is going to provide some good protection for the wetland.
On the other lot?
On other lots where the lawn could spread out. It's, from an enforcement perspective, if you don't have a good line like this, it's very difficult to keep people from cutting down trees and mowing.
Right, but I think part of the purpose of this exercise was to demonstrate that we could provide for, the suitability and feasibility of each of these lots with the understanding that, in all likelihood, as these lots get sold off, that, the houses are going to change in size, shape, and so on and so forth. At that time, the full application is going to come back to this board. And I think that's really the more appropriate time to start getting down into the level of detail that you're asking for at this point. What we did was try to pick out the three most difficult lots in the subdivision, if you would, and show how they could be accommodated with regards to the plantings and providing for the buffer areas. I hate to get in a situation where we're starting to get into this minute level of detail for every lot in the subdivision, and then we're just going to be redesigning it again anyway as the individual lots start coming in.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. I'm concerned, though, that you never know when a lot's going to come back. If it comes back in 5 years and people don't remember what we had discussed. So I think there's somehow we have to codify the discussion of the types of things that we would want on each lot if we're going to do that way, and that would be something we would have to do then. Another question I have, the stormwater detention basin, the way it's situated, it's on a slope, and it looks like a lot of the the treed buffer has to be taken out. Is there some reason why it's there and not moved over into the, what looks like, the meadow area, so that less trees have to be removed?
I would say from the general location, it looks like your tree line is coming in through this third of the basin in that area. So, yeah, part of that excavation will get back into the tree canopy. Now, your question was to...
Can it be shifted a little bit just to right over here where the outlet is and the grading is, it's about 40 feet from that closest wetland. Is there any reason why that basin couldn't be shifted over into the meadow area a little bit more, even if it's closer to the other wetland, because then you wouldn't have to remove all those trees?
I think the simple answer to that is yes. Again, our thought or design process on it was to try to maintain a fairly uniform setback from the wetlands. Mm-hmm. If there's more concern with maintaining this buffer area in this general area, and if you tell us that we could get within 10 feet of the wetlands, then we could probably shift this over, elongate it a little bit more, and take that into account and try to preserve as much of the...
You can see that better depicted again on the map behind you, Robert, with the gray, the lighter shaded area versus the dark.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the tree buffer is so valuable for a wetland, and, if you move the basin edge over closer to the other wetland, I don't see that it's going to affect it that much, but to take out those trees, that does affect a wetland when you remove any of the buffer. So, if all things are equal, to me, that would be a better option.
If the commission doesn't have a problem allowing us to get within 5 or 10 feet of the wetlands along the western edge, then we could certainly...
How close would you want it, Diana? Just as it's right now, it's about 30 to 40 at least.
Well, you see where the tree line is next to the wetland. I wouldn't want it right on the wetland edge, but I think we'd want to leave, I haven't been out to this specific area and I don't see it, but I see a lot of trees being removed, so I'd like to see it moved over, even 10 feet. It's a grading.
Yeah, right now...
Limit was 10.
Right now, at the closest point at wetland flag number 89, our grading is within approximately 25 feet of that wetland flag.
It also looks like you could even shape it differently. If it were longer and thinner and fit in that space without removing the trees too.
The only comment I have there, Diana, is the trees themselves create, the leaves create a real nuisance maintenance headache. So is to have the tree buffer for the wetland, for the canopy to not change the thermal effects of it, certainly I can appreciate. As far as maintenance of the detent pond, though, with that heavy tree canopy right next to it, that's something that is a continual headache, and it constantly provides volunteering of woody vegetation within the pond, and trying to get the homeowners to maintain that is always a real challenge.
Well, if you, then that means that what you're saying is that trees would have to be taken out further than what's shown here adjacent to the existing proposed location. If we moved it farther away, we could take out less trees. There's only 40 feet between the outlet and this wetland and the edge of that basin. So if you're saying that, trees would have to be taken out adjacent to the basin, then that means the trees between the edge of the fill and the wetland would have to be taken out to do that. If we move it over, then we're going to take out less of a buffer. Even if you had to take the trees out along the edge of the basin.
I still think we
So-
should have some of the trees out
Yeah.
of the basin, but certainly not in the magnitude that I believe that you are heading towards, but I'm just,
Taking some out on the easterly side nonetheless.
Some of the, on the easterly side, but if the basin's moved over, less have to be taken
Fewer,
out.
that's right.
Yeah.
That could still make sense. You could still.
Yeah, I mean, the only other, in listening to the dialogue going back and forth, the only other concern that I would have is that if we start getting this detention basin too close to this water course, you don't want the influx of groundwater from the stream getting into the basin.
Yep.
With the testing that we've done out there, this is a relatively this is an area that's going to be fairly conducive to the development of this detention basin. I think as we move it more towards the west, groundwater may become a little bit more of an issue with that basin at that
that's right where that ditch comes through there.
That's true.
Well, that's a consideration, so.
So I think
Yeah.
to answer your question, yes, we could certainly move it in a westerly direction. Is that something that the commission really wants to do?
I would say if from an engineering standpoint, it's, it would work, I would like to see it. But if you're saying that, it's going to cause problems moving it over from a groundwater situation, then no.
Other commissioners? And Diana, do you have any specific lots that you wanted to, as they did on 4, 5, and 8, put in the stone walls and some plantings? Did you have any other specific ones?
Well, even when we have a 50-foot buffer, there's always, the lawn seems to expand. So even like on lot 2, what is that? Let's see if I can find my 50 here. The septic system is about 40 feet, so that's still close. So, any of those, I'd like to see either the plantings or, something to identify the limits of the lawn.
Well, I think it's better if we just choose which number lots to come back when they have the actual physical house, and just label them all this way. We did it before where, say, lot 1 comes back, they're going to show us the exact detail of the house. There might not be a pool, and then they'll come back, and that's when we'll decide if they need a new rock wall, plantings, and all that. At least we know which lots are coming back.
Yeah, if you
Okay,
could identify it then such that
Yeah.
if it is 5 years later, at least it's in the record for lot number such and such, there should be a delineation of some sort, whatever wording you would want.
That's what I would like to have, something for the future so that subsequent commissions will know what we were really approving.
Yeah, because I think with what Mr. Codespodia pointed out, with the exception of Lot 7, every other lot in the subdivision has some wetlands on it, so it's certainly going to fall within the jurisdiction of this commission.
Any other questions, commissioners? I have a question then tonight. This is still the public hearing. Do we want to keep the public hearing open while we consider the matter that Scott raised tonight about a potential change in the property line?
They're coming back with a new plan and taking up this corner. I would think so if we could have talked about it after.
All right, that makes sense to me. At this time then, Robert, thank you. I'll ask anyone from the public who would like to come up and speak. Yeah, please come up to the microphone. Mr. Zioli, welcome.
My knees are killing me. Jim Zioli. That was all my question, Charles, was, are you going to keep this open? I've been sitting in the room watching, and I've heard Mr. Codispoti and Mr. Weiwei and talk about a couple issues here with the drainage here, and I also had a little concern with this over here, so I just would request you keep it open until we can get those couple issues resolved between the town side and the private property owner side. Is all. I think that will be done.
I think it will be done.
Pretty readily, but until it's cast, I'd like to see you.
Public hearing will remain open then.
Thank you.
Mr. Codispoti, Mr. Weiwei, do you think our next meeting is the 27th of November? And I believe we're going to need more time. Thank you, Rick.
No problem with that. The only thing I'd like to know is, we'd like to, if there are these two issues can be worked out, obviously, between the town and Mr., he's in Florida now. That's where I should be, but...
Shouldn't we all?
Well, no, not all of us. I don't really care about that. No, I'm only kidding, of course. Only kidding. But I'm just saying that, are there other issues? Because we don't want to come back
exactly.
and have to keep it going.
It is a good point, and I would, in consideration of the applicant, are there other issues that you want to bring up regarding flora, fauna, stormwater management?
What I'd like to do, if I may...
Potentially not number 10, anything?
We'd like not to have Mr. Abrams back, if that's possible. So if there's anything of him, this would, not that we don't like Mr. Abrams either, don't get me wrong, but it is a long way for him to go. If there's no issues further with him, that would be fine. If there are, he's here now, and I would appreciate if you'd make sure those issues were issued.
Commissioners, anybody have any questions for Mr. Abrams, Drew Associates reports? No? Hearing none. You're free to leave.
And any other issue that we should be prepared for.
Are there any other issues? I agree. I would like to see if we have anything new, especially if there's anything new. We should have already spoken, but potentially something came as you read more material. Diana?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, since we're going to hold it open, if you'd look at the basin.
Yes. So one of the issues would be to look at this basin.
Look at the basin, potentially some wording that we might use on other lots.
And these two issues.
And those two issues.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. That'll stop the public hearing for tonight on Farm River Estates.
The time?
At 9:22. Do we have any other business tonight on our agenda? I don't believe so. There was a concern whether there is an extension needed or not.
I do not believe that
Do
we
you
need an
think so?
extension.
No?
This is
We're 36 days now into the public hearing.
This is only the second meeting. This is the second meeting on the public hearing side.
Diana, did you have a thought?
35 days for the public hearing.
35 days to make a decision afterwards, right?
I think it's 35 days for the public hearing.
Oh, I think if at the
I
end of
didn't
the
think
day...
that-
Thought it was total 60, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Then we'll get one written up for you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Robert. Would would anyone else like to make a motion tonight regarding our meeting? Walter? Thank you. Walter, make a motion to adjourn. Someone like to second? Jim, second it. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Looks like it's unanimous. We're adjourned at 9:24.